Welcome, everybody. Let's get started with this week's message from your clinical training team. For week 6, we are going to talk about steps for having a difficult or sensitive conversation with your practicum setting. This would be either your agency representative or agency director, or perhaps one of your supervisors. I want to start off with the first things first. I want to normalize that having a sensitive or difficult conversation is not an easy thing to do. In fact, I would say it's completely normal to dread having these types of conversations with your practicum setting. No one wants to deliver unpleasant news or discuss delicate subjects or talk about things that need to change or things that have gone wrong. Over the years, I have seen so many trainees anticipate these types of conversations with anxiety, fear, anger, and a host of other emotions. It is so normal to fear these types of conversations and even avoid having them. Yet, as a trainee and budding mental health professional, it is such an important aspect of your development to not avoid these types of conversations at your practicum setting in most circumstances. Avoidance often leaves the problem unresolved, and putting it off can actually make things worse. So let's get started on this week's topic. So here are the 3 areas we are going to focus on today. First, we want to explore common issues that trainees tend to face at their practicum setting. Second, we will go over one model that focuses on 3 stages of trainee development or supervisee. Lastly, we're going to discuss steps that you can take to manage various challenges you may face at your practicum setting. So let's take a look at the most common issues trainees have reported facing at their practicum sites. Now, while many of these challenges are a normal part of your development as a trainee, they can still cause anxiety, stress, overwhelm, discomfort. Any of these challenges listed are worth bringing up in supervision, or perhaps in your clinical practicum class to process how would you manage these types of situations. Many of our trainees experience imposter syndrome. In fact, if not all trainees experience imposter syndrome. Many of our trainees, their future vision of what they expected working clinically, it just does not align with reality they face as working as a trainee in a practicum setting. Many trainees experience overwhelm and discomfort with all the policies and procedures at their practicum setting and the regulations of the profession. And others struggle with the reality of learning how to navigate their own humanness while they're learning to be a therapist for the first time and set healthy boundaries. All of these issues listed here, if they are not discussed, they can lead to overwhelm, postponing graduation, burnout, dismissal from a site, or even dropping out of the program or the profession. Now let's take a moment to focus on the rare challenges at sites. Now, these are situations where you would witness a legal or ethical breach at your practicum setting, which in our team's experience, it happens pretty rarely. But the big one that's the big red flag for our team is safety. Anything to do with trainee safety or client safety. If a trainee is not safe at their practicum setting, our clinical training team and other departments at Pepperdine will step in to ensure the student is safe and has proper supports. And this may ultimately mean that the student is pulled from the site and supported to find a new setting when it's appropriate. On the other hand, if supervisors or agency directors deem that their client's care is at risk due to a trainee's unsafe or unpredictable or unprofessional behaviors, Students may be dismissed or pulled from the practicum site until they're able to engage in client care without concerns. Now, there are other situations of ethical or legal concern that sometimes pop up, which are more what we would call like a yellow flag type of situation. And those might be where sites are holding group supervision with 8 trainees or associates, more than eight trainees or associates in the room. When this occurs, we always encourage the trainee to go talk to their supervisor and remind them of the regulations of the profession of the BBS and what's stated on their supervision agreement, as well as their 4-way agreement here at Pepperdine. Once those discussions are usually had, sites will then come back and bring it down to the appropriate level of trainees in a room. The same thing happens with not enough supervision to cover client contact hours. Sometimes sites just need reminders that you need more supervision. So it's about being able to advocate for your needs and discuss those things with your supervisors. Now, the steps that I go over later in the presentation on how to handle difficult conversations, it's really only for situations where trainees feel safe and not threatened in some way. So if you don't feel safe at your practicum site to have the conversation, then it's important to discuss next steps with your clinical training coordinator or your program director. Now, let's take a look at this model that highlights developmental stages of the trainee or the supervisee. Being aware of these developmental stages can really give you clarity on why you may be experiencing some challenges that were previously listed in the presentation. So this particular model stresses the need for the supervisor to utilize skills and approaches that correspond to the level of the supervisee. We see a level 1, level 2, and level 3 at various stages of their development. Now, when a supervisor works with a level 1 trainee, which many of our students are, regardless of how far along in life you are, or if you've had previous careers, that supervisor needs to balance the level 1 trainee's high anxiety and fear and reliance on supervision by being supportive and also directive. They often give very concrete solutions and advice to reduce the level of anxiety the new trainee may have. But that same supervisor, when they are supervising the level 3 trainee, they would emphasize autonomy and engage in respectful challenging due to the level of development that level 3 is at. But if that supervisor was consistently responding in ways that was not in line with the developmental level of the supervisee or the trainee, it would likely result in a significant difficulty for that trainee to satisfactorily master the current developmental stage that they're in. So, if one of our trainees from Pepperdine was at a site and a supervisor demands autonomous behavior from a level 1 trainee, that person, it's likely to intensify their anxiety, which could result in a really intense, challenging situation for them as a trainee. And that situation would need to be addressed. So when trainees face these various challenges at their practicum site, whether these challenges are common, rare, or developmental, what steps do they take? So we're going to go through each one of these steps on the following slides. First thing to do is prepare for the conversation. And in that preparation, it is important to be curious about what else might be going on at the site. What is your experience and what is their experience? What might be the agency's experience? What is it you don't know or don't have information about? And what is the most important thing that could bring you together on this issue? You want to give time to reflect on the bigger picture, as you may find ways to approach the situation differently. So we have listed some great questions to use should you need them when you prepare for a conversation with a supervisor or agency. So please feel free to use those. Another excellent way to prepare is to write out what you are going to say. Right? Writing it down and organizing your points will help you stay on track when you are in the actual conversation. And feel free to take the script or the notes that when you go to the meeting with your supervisor or agency director, that's completely okay. It's okay to say that you're scared. It's okay to say, I feel nervous. It's okay to say, I feel vulnerable while sharing this information with you. Always feel free to take your preparation with you, as it really can help ground you and keep you on track. Another option might be role-playing the conversation with your practicum class and your professor. This is a wonderful opportunity to get more diverse and comprehensive feedback from your class. You want to remember that your development as a clinician is more than just what's happening in the room with clients. It expands to the systems that you're working in. It is important to learn how to navigate these systems while you are in graduate school, where you have multiple layers of support. And lastly, you can consult with your clinical training team on ways to approach. This is a wonderful way that we can help support you. So please contact our office if you ever need any further guidance on having a difficult or sensitive conversation. So now let's take a look at the example of how you might invite someone into this conversation. Perhaps this is an email that you're sending to invite them in to have this conversation with you. But to have the conversation, when you're having the conversation, I will say we strongly recommend that they always happen in person or via Zoom or maybe by phone, but never through email or through text. So let's take a look at this email, this invitation email that is broken down into 4 parts. So the first thing you want to do is start with neutral and open language. You might say, can we touch base on some things I need your feedback on? Very neutral, very, very open. Right? Next, we want to show curiosity about their perspective. You might say, I'm having some concerns or some issues with how it's going at the practicum site that I'd like to talk to you about. I'm curious if you could help me understand how to navigate these issues. Asking for their help, right? Next, we're going to state those shared goals or values. For instance, you might say, I want to make sure that we are on the same page moving forward, as well as consider all legal and ethical guidelines while working as an MFT trainee. Then, of course, as with any important conversation, you want to make sure you set a good time to talk, as you don't want any distractions or interruptions. You want to ask them, what would be a good time for you? That's your invitation. Let's go ahead, and you've sent that invitation off. You've scheduled it. You're there in the room. The day has come for the conversation. So how are you going to start that conversation? Well, the first thing you do is you want to set the stage by sharing what you appreciate, right? What do you appreciate about your experience there? What is going well with your supervisor at your site? What are you learning at the site that's valuable to you? Sharing this during your opening will really help the conversation go more smoothly. So listed here are a few examples of what trainees might say given a particular situation. So take some time to review these examples and use as you might see fit. Right? Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate how you are available to listen and mentor me as a trainee. I love how you provide such deep insights into the work I do with clients. Or maybe you want to talk to the agency director. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate the mission of the agency and truly value the work we do in this community. I am sure there's so many moving parts in running this agency, and I appreciate all you do to make services available to the community. So we've opened the conversation in a very positive tone. Next, we want to share your goal and hope for the conversation. For example, you might say, I really hope we can work together to figure out a solution that works for the agency and supports my needs as a trainee. By sharing a goal that expresses hope for both parties, the trainee and the site, the conversation stays constructive. And once you've opened that conversation, now's the time where we can move on to the next step, which is seeking to understand at a deeper level. You want to get the bigger picture first, so you can deepen your understanding or your perspective of what's going on. Check in on how they see things and reflect back what you hear to ensure you are understanding correctly. This is the time where you can use these therapeutic skills that you have learned in the program, right? Reflect what you hear and ask for confirmation. It sounds like blank is really important to the agency. Is that right? Yeah, any of those types of comments will truly help you get a bigger understanding of what's going on. The more you know through checking in on their perspective, the greater your understanding. And the more you understand, the more collaborative you come across and you can be when you share your perspective or concern on a situation at a site. Here are some other ways you can even dig deeper, right? Using these prompts. Could you help me understand? Could you tell me more about? Could you share how you would help you dig deeper in your understanding? And this kind of curious stance helps the conversation stay away from blaming language or assumptions, right? Assuming the worst. It really helps you work with your site collaboratively, professionally, and respectfully. And these prompts keep the professional relationship at the forefront, which is extremely valuable for you as a trainee and a mental health professional. So this next step is the step to share your need. This is sharing your perspective and request, right? What is it that you are experiencing as a trainee that they need to know about, right? The examples that we have here on this slide and the next slide are some nice examples of some things that you might say if you're experiencing challenges at your site. So for instance, this first example, this is my first training experience as an MFT trainee. I need more guidance and support before adding more clients to my caseload. I feel lost and overwhelmed. Can we devise a plan and work out a schedule that builds my caseload at a pace that is in line with my developmental level as an MFT trainee and meets the agency expectation? You've shared your perspective and you've also shared your request. I do want to point out that even when we do share those things, sometimes we don't necessarily get everything we want out of the request. But the idea is that what you're setting up is you are setting up a way to work collaboratively and in a way that they can hear your need. So then your chances are greater at getting what you need from your practicum site. So it's an incredibly important thing to be able to request a change from your site. It is vulnerable. It's a vulnerable thing to express your needs, and it can feel super uncomfortable and unnatural at times. But this is a skill that we strongly encourage you to work towards mastering as an MFT professional. And this is one of those skills that we ask our clients to engage in constantly. So it is important that we gain comfort in engaging in our own uncomfortable conversations. Here's another slide that has a couple other examples of something that you might say when you're sharing your perspective and your request. Lastly, we want to collaborate to find a solution. What is the common ground and what is the most important thing for both parties moving forward? This is the time where you can turn those complaints or the issues or the needs into requests. I wonder what supports I can request to navigate the agency culture and organization better. Would you be open to spending some time outside group supervision going over my documentation? Would it be possible to implement check-ins so you are aware of what's on my plate before I am assigned an additional client? Can you help me understand how to terminate with clients more effectively to keep my client load at a manageable size? All of these are really important requests. You also want to look at this opportunity in this collaboration stage as an opportunity to brainstorm solutions for the future and offer tentative solutions, right? This is a time to share your insight, your experience, and perhaps create a fresh way to resolve an issue. So take the time to think outside of the box and collaborate on these potential solutions together. And finally, after those steps, you want to make a concrete plan. You want that you can follow up with from the conversation. You want to define a specific agreement and plan. Notice that in these examples, we have a timeline. We're trying to make it very specific. This is something that might look similar to even a goal you might write for a client. But you want to have it be specific, measurable to some degree, so you know what to expect. It's also important to schedule a check-in to make sure things are moving in a direction that both parties find helpful and supportive. So these check-ins, they keep both parties accountable to the solution that you worked so hard on as a team. So this is also a time where you can revise your plan if needed. So thank you. Thank you so much for watching this week. This is a brief, fast going through this particular topic. But if you need more support, please don't hesitate to contact our office. I hope these tips are helpful at your practicum setting and in your professional experiences in the future. And I wish you all the best.